Hello, Bat fans. I am Anthony Mango, and welcome to the continuation of The Batman, a nighttime story. 100 records from the Wayne Foundation archives. This is my epic Batman blueprint as part of the Blueprint Project, wherein I am taking every possible adaptation of the Bruce Wayne and Batman story from comics, video games, every episode of every television show, every single movie from all the different versions of this, every adaptation you can possibly think of. And I am boiling that down into the most concise and best possible version of the story, otherwise known as what I keep calling the gold standard Bible of the character. If you are brand new to this, please go back and check out not only the explanation video of what the Blueprint Project is all about, but also the previous chapters we have talked about, where I got into chapter 1, which is called Why Do We Fall, and chapter 2, which is called The Big Chill. You want to know what the story is leading up to this point before you get into chapter 3, and those are the best possible ways for you to do that. Also, make sure that you hit the like button on those videos to boost them up quite a bit and continue on with spreading the word about the Blueprint Project. Show your support by sharing this on social media, and you can do that on every single platform that's out there. The more the better. TikTok, Instagram, subreddits, message boards, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is. Make sure that you are using hashtags Batman Blueprint and hire Mango DC Comics. Make sure you are tweeting at people like James Gunn, and don't bug him though. Don't make this a thing. But tweet at James Gunn, at Batman for that account. Tweet at DC Comics. Tweet at people who have been a part of the Batman franchise over the years and different adaptations. Share this through the Batman fan community on different DC community boards or, different things from the superhero genre in general. The more that you spread this, the better, the more likelihood that the right eyes are going to be put on this project, and the more chances that the Batman A Nighttime story can be more than just me presenting something on YouTube. Because these YouTube synopses that I'm doing, this is not the end game of the Blueprint Project. What I'm doing here is I am giving you these overall story narratives in a pitch form, essentially. The idea in mind is for me to present this to you and to hopefully get people from DC and people from elsewhere to become aware of it. And then we can make this into an actual movie, or we can make this into a series of television episodes or comic series, whatever it might be. I don't really know. 100 stories, it's quite a bit to adapt, but hey, I'm doing it. That's the whole point. So I'm doing the legwork, and I want somebody to be able to assist me in presenting that to everybody in the format that it should be, as opposed to just me reading out what the story is. So previously we have discussed the first and the second chapters of Volume 1, which of course is called Gotham Guardian. And that means that we are now on chapter 3 of the first volume. And this chapter is entitled Guilt Trip. Now, the previous chapter took place over a 10-year period. And this one is going to take place over around a 4 or 5 year period. And much like how The Big Chill could have been 10 chapters in and of itself, the same could apply here. But we're keeping some stuff vague and generalized, and in a lot of ways, this is like an elongated training montage sequence. And one goal that we have in mind is to show the progression of Bruce from an angry and lost kid to someone who can come back to Gotham with a mission. On top of that, we have to check off certain skill sets and get into more of the reason why and how Bruce dons the cape and cowl. So we've been in Gotham for 100% of the last 2 stories. I think it's time for us to freshen up the scenery a little bit. So are you ready to explore the bigger world that Batman happens to be in beyond Gotham? Are you also ready to hear me mispronounce a bunch of names? Because that is certainly going to happen in this one. So strap yourselves in. Bruce's abrupt exit from Gotham in the last chapter not only turned his world upside down, but a lot of other people's as well. Public opinion on the Joe Chill incident is a very mixed bag. Lots of people, rightfully so, assume that Carmine Falcone had something to do with this, but because Joe Chill is not talking, and certainly Falcone is not, that is all just still speculation. Truth be told, most of the people in Gotham just don't really care at the end of the day, and they are just going about their business. But the whereabouts of Bruce Wayne is a very hot topic for the gossip circle of the social elite. When you have another juicy Wayne scandal, that's just delicious to them. And naturally, some of those people keep spreading the rumor that maybe Bruce had something to do with it. Maybe he was the person who hired that assassin, and maybe he's on the run to avoid the authorities. And there are people that are just flat out making up stories about where Bruce is too. They all have the hot news scoop on Bruce just so people can listen to them. Sometimes there are rumors that Bruce was sighted at a party, and some people are like, I personally hung out with him the other day. And other people even try to claim that they had a little secret fling with Bruce that they need to be shh about because nobody's supposed to know that we're actually seeing each other and all this. It's all hearsay and speculation, and all the tales are, as tall as they could possibly be, and they're all naturally complete and utter bullshit. Also, the longer that Bruce is away, the more that certain people within Wayne Enterprises that are not quite on the up and up are trying to assert their power. And there are people within the board of directors who actually want Bruce to be declared legally dead because, in their mind, this isn't fiscally responsible to the shareholders, aka they just want to move higher up on the food chain. This is their excuse for it. Plus, realistically, the Joe Chill shooting situation reflects pretty poorly on Wayne Enterprises, and with Bruce not doing anything about it, then, they got a little bit of a point there that Wayne Enterprises doesn't look the best right now, and certain people are thinking, hey, maybe it's time that Wayne Enterprises is no longer about the Waynes. The only Wayne that's left just disappeared. He's not running the company. He's never been running the company. That's not really a great leader, is that? Essentially, the company is split in thirds. A third of the company is made up of these corrupt and money-hungry jerks. Another third of the company is just people that are doing their jobs. They aren't thinking anything of it. They wouldn't really care one way or the other. They never met Bruce, so there's no personal attachment there. They never met Thomas and Martha either. They are just essentially treating this as a job, a new boss is a new boss. Whatever it is, as long as they're still getting their paycheck, that's really all that matters. And then the other third are made up of loyalists, and these are people like Lucius Fox. They are the ones that are keeping it all together, and they are trying to maintain enough records where if and when Bruce returns, he is going to still be in charge of this company and be in a position of power. They don't want this to collapse, and they think that this should stay within the Waynes. And they're also just not a fan of the other corrupt people, so why would you want them in power? But that is all easier said than done because Bruce is being entirely uncommunicative. And over the course of all the years that transpire from Chapter 3 and Chapter 4 for that matter, Bruce is only sparingly going to reach out with some basic proof of life and sort of the bare minimum conversations to keep him in some position of power with Wayne Enterprises. He doesn't want it to collapse, but also he doesn't want people to know where he is and what he's doing. And actually, there are only two people that he is going to reach out to, Alfred and Lucius. Even when it comes to Alfred, who he talks to the most, that's still pretty sparingly. So Lucius is, of course, not as much as that. And then when you get into people that are super close to him, like Gordon and Leslie, he's not even going to reach out to them at all. So one of my biggest criticisms of this era of storytelling for Batman that I wanted to rectify is they always have Bruce leaving for anywhere from 4 to 12 years, whatever it might be. And I never hear anything about him reaching out to Alfred. And in my mind, they had a strong connection for the first 8 years, and then Thomas and Martha get killed, and for the next 10 years, he is his guardian. Why would Alfred not have such a strong enough connection with Bruce that Bruce wouldn't want to at least reach out in some fashion? For them to just not communicate just seems weird to me. Just poof, he doesn't see him for years at a time? Then Alfred would assume that Bruce is probably dead. And even though they do that in Batman Begins, I don't quite like that, so we're twisting things around a little bit. Bruce is going to reach out, but it's not like he is going to be having his cell phone on him and chatting with Alfred every night and giving him a little bit of a, hey, this is what I did earlier today or anything. No, he's going to keep that something completely separate. This is going to be just enough to be like, hey, let me check in every once in a while, let me know that I'm still alive and I still care about you, and the things that I'm doing are kind of complicated and we'll talk about it eventually someday, but all you need to know is that I'm still safe. Also, naturally, Bruce doesn't have a cell phone because if he had that, they could ping his GPS, and he doesn't want anybody to know where he is, and he also doesn't want any kind of a safety net. It's a little too easy for him to just always have that in the back of his mind and in the back of his pocket. Now, when I say Bruce doesn't want any safety nets, I mean he doesn't want any safety nets. We last saw him stowing away on the docks, and he was shipping off to where he didn't really know where he was going. And he has nothing on him. He doesn't have his wallet, he doesn't have his license, obviously, no phone, no money. He has no means for people to directly identify who he is. All he really has is his overcoat and the residue of shame and guilt that he has from nearly shooting Joe Chill. That's a pretty heavy burden. And while Bruce has obviously been on boats before, he's been on yachts and party cruise ships and everything. Nothing like this. He is hiding out between shipping crates and he has zero game plan in mind. He doesn't know where he's going, what he's doing, but that's what Bruce feels like he needs right now. He has all these questions in his mind, and now he thinks he's finally going to start seeking the answers in a way that he's forced to, as he would say all these years, test his limits. Of course, this is to a more extreme nature. And while most people say that they would go to the ends of the earth for something, Bruce is actually willing to put those words into action. And in Bruce's mind, the universe needs to push him into some sort of direction. And if that happens to be that this is a shipwreck at the bottom of the ocean, well, he's depressed, so be it. Now, as me being the Word of God writer of this, and this being a pitch video, I can give you a little bit of behind the scenes, peek behind the curtain for certain things, like a guy on the ship is named Hector, he is from the Batman Begins novelization, and obviously we know that this is all going to be Bruce training to come back to Gotham, put on an armored suit, call himself the Batman, fight a bunch of bad guys. But how do we get to that point? And what does Bruce need to learn on this journey? And there are so many things. Now, as far as the psychological and emotional and mental lessons that he needs to learn discipline. I mean, after 18 years of mostly being able to call the shots and doing whatever he wanted to do, that's going to be a change of pace. He also needs to learn anger management and how to channel that rage into something productive, because self-destruction is pretty pointless. He needs a newfound respect for his position of power, and that includes his wealth, because that is going to be one of his major tools in fighting this war on crime. He needs to get some world experience and not be quite as sheltered, so that way he can open up his eyes to a bigger picture. And he needs to learn patience, which is a skill that everybody can benefit from. And he also needs a purpose to drive him going forward. He can only dwell on the why of this for so long before he needs to do something with these feelings. Basically, we need Bruce to have a more intense version of what happens when you graduate high school and you move on to college. That's going to be a framing device for some of this stuff. You know some of who you are as a person when you graduate high school, but you aren't really an adult yet, and you need to be forged through the fire of these different experiences that you get through college and the college years if you don't necessarily go through college. And you need to get answers of figuring out how you are going to fit in the rest of the world and what you are going to do with the rest of your life. Basically, Bruce needs to find himself all over again. He's been the boy who lost his parents, but how does a man deal with this? Now, as far as what Bruce needs to learn when it comes to the skills that he applies as being the Batman, number one is his indomitable willpower, which is already instilled into him. Number two is intelligence, and not only have we already established how he's ready for people like the Riddler to quiz him on everything from humanities to sciences, but remember that the genetics are there too. Thomas and Martha were incredibly smart, and Bruce has a photographic memory. This is going to come in handy for how quickly Bruce can master his training. If it takes an average person 10,000 hours to become an expert in something, Bruce can do it in half or even a quarter of the time. And since he's great at multitasking, and one skill like agility can help when it comes to stealth, he advances at a rapid rate. He also starts at an advanced course level when it comes to physical conditioning and combat skills, since he learned so much over the years from Alfred. In a one-on-one street fight, Bruce is basically at the level of an amateur MMA fighter. He can take most people, unless they outclass him in size. For example, he would lose a fight to Brock Lesnar, for any WWE or UFC fans out there. But he'll learn more combat skills and fighting techniques, as well as the supplemental aspects like developing a higher pain threshold and getting better precision strikes. Number four is stepping away from the brawn and going back to the brains a bit, but since he is going to become the world's greatest detective, you can add detective skills to the mix that he needs to study. This includes understanding the criminal element, which he does in a way similar to how people live with animals to watch them in their natural environment. And finally, he needs to learn to master the arts of the intimidation game. That's a reference. Another thing I want to say is that I can't justify Bruce learning all of this from just one mentor. That's way too simple. He has way too many skills that he needs to learn to become the Batman that we know. And also on top of that, when you learn from one mentor, then you run the risk of something happening where the mentor taught you everything that you know, but not everything that they know. And when it comes to that trap, Bruce needs to have his skills in a way that he can trump his predecessor. I mean, Bruce is the poster child for Mr. Contingency Plan. Basically, once Bruce learns some kind of a skill, he's going to seek out how to beat that skill, because you can't beat Bruce if he knows how you are going to try to beat him. Really, the only safety net that he ever has is having a backup plan. And he doesn't have that here, which is, he tries to go out of his element. That's kind of the whole point. But that is going to be a core foundational thing for who the Batman is. But all along the way here, let's continue to use this analogy that Bruce essentially graduated high school, and now he's in college. And these 4 years or so are going to be his bachelor's degree in vigilantism. Okay, I know that you really want to know where Bruce is, so let's start diving into it. The first time that Bruce reaches out to Alfred just to essentially tell him not to worry and that he's okay, he's still alive, and so on, he tells him that he is enjoying a nice drink in a nice cafe in Florence. Now, Bruce didn't plan for this boat to end up in Italy, but the universe works in mysterious ways, and what better way to start this whole journey than to be in the place where Bruce attributes most of the crime in Gotham, because this all started from the Sicilian Mafia. And here he can learn a lot about the history of the Cosa Nostra. Now, I'm tempted to potentially make a little spin-off video outside of these 5 chapters that gets into some of the backstory of all that, so if you want that, let me know. And we can get into Stefano Mandragora starting this all in Sicily, and the 5 families of the Beretti and Bertinelli and Casamento and Galante and Inzarello groups and things along those lines. But those are all prequel stuff that happens before Falcone takes power in chapter 1. So, we're not going to really get into that here. But if you're interested, let me know. Maybe we'll do something else about that. Alfred tries to imagine that Bruce is enjoying himself and pictures it that way. But the reality to the situation is Bruce has no money. And he was just pitied upon by the people that work there. They're really nice people, and they could see that he could use a meal, so they decided to give him one and just be charitable, and this is something that Bruce is going to remember. So Bruce has to start at the bottom. He is currently homeless, which means that he is living with other homeless people. And this is a huge culture shock to Bruce. For 18 years, he lived a life of privilege. And we're not quite talking Plato's allegory of the cave here, where he's stepping into the light for the first time, but this is about as eye-opening of a worldview as he possibly can get. In a lot of ways, Bruce looks at this as, look, if this is my rock bottom of what my life can possibly ever get to, my parents are dead, I'm poor, I'm living on the streets, if he can get past this, it can't really get any worse. So if he triumphs out of that, then he can get through anything. Of course, Bruce does still need to survive for that to be the case, and after a few days, he finds himself having to resort to stealing to get some food. But remember, Bruce is the type of person who can go drunk driving without actually drinking. He's going to game the system and make sure that he doesn't really cross the line into becoming a criminal. So one of the ways that he's going to do that is if he steals from a market, he's been writing in this coded journal throughout this whole time frame. He's going to continue to do that. So he's going to take note of that and make sure that they get compensation in the future, some kind of layaway payment, essentially. But he's also only going to steal from Wayne Enterprises brands, or more specifically, Wayne Industries. They're the subsidiary that controls things like the Wayne Botanical subdivision and the Wayne Foods subdivision, and I can geek out over that stuff, but you don't really care. So let's move on. Effectively, Bruce is only stealing from himself because he runs Wayne Enterprises, so it's not really stealing, or at least that's the mental dance that he does to justify it, and it makes a lot of sense in some ways. So Bruce is forced to find shelter from the elements, and he tends to interact with a lot of other homeless people along the way. And in the process, he learns firsthand that sometimes people are legitimately just down on their luck. And not all criminals are evil to their core. They might just be in a bad situation, and they might be backed into a corner with no conceivable way out, and that's the only way that they can fend for themselves. He can suddenly start to imagine that a Joe Chill makes a little bit more sense. But as far as that guy's concerned, screw that guy. He's not going to forgive him. He just understands him a little bit more. It's not like that's okay. He still killed his parents. But that also means that Bruce unfortunately also has to deal with people that are sick and have mental health issues and are drug addicts and such, that they are homeless for those reasons. So while Bruce is able to actually kind of make some friends among some of the vagabonds, he also comes directly in conflict with plenty of adversaries that are trying to steal his food or his resources, or maybe just attacking him for no reason whatsoever. And one of those is a man named Mabuse. We might change the pronunciation of that to go with something a little bit more Italian, but I haven't quite figured that out yet. But he is a scavenger who likes to create weapons out of garbage. And he, for instance, creates this armor plating kind of out of trash cans. He teaches Bruce two things that are very important. Number one being some ingenuity. This guy's fashioning weapons out of nothing. That's pretty interesting. You ever see those prison documentaries where people create a knife out of like a wet paper? That kind of stuff is fascinating, and Bruce gets to see some of that firsthand. Unfortunately, in some of the wrong ways, because number two that he teaches him is Mabuse breaks Bruce's nose. This is definitely a lesson in humility, and Bruce actually goes on record to say that this is one of his biggest embarrassments of his vigilante career. And it's also a good lesson that even the lowliest criminals can still pack quite a bit of a punch. So Bruce keeps that in mind. Eventually when he's fighting these whole gangs worth of people and they've got like a big bad, like a Joker or something, it's not just the main boss villain who can take you down. You can catch a stray bullet or a stiff shot from somebody who is just a regular mook. This whole homeless era doesn't last for more than a few weeks, but it does give Bruce a little bit of a baseline that he's going to continue to use going forward. Now, no matter where he goes on all this journey, he is traveling the world, and of course there are different things in different areas and all, but he at least knows the basic rules of survival and can fend for himself and work his way up the food chain. So while Bruce is navigating the homeless scene in Italy, he eventually gets into a fight with a couple guys, and they all get thrown into a jail cell. And this is when he is approached by a man in a suit who claims to be his lawyer. Bruce has never seen this guy before, but this guy asks Bruce, "What are you doing?" And Bruce just says, "Hey, I was defending myself against those 7 guys. I didn't do anything wrong." And the man says, "No, I don't care about those men. I want to know what you're doing here among them, Bruce." And Bruce is taken aback. How does this man know who he is? And the man says, "The world is too small for someone like Bruce Wayne to disappear, no matter how deep he chooses to sink." And the man introduces himself. "I'm Henry Ducard." Ducard is a former Interpol agent turned bounty hunter. He is an extremely skilled tracker, among many other talents. And he is not the only person who has been hired to find out where Bruce Wayne went off to. But he's so good at his job that he's the first person to find Bruce. And this presents a good opportunity, and Bruce just assumes that maybe he's looking for a payout, maybe a bribe to not report back to his superiors where Bruce is. But Ducard says, no, he's not interested in money. He has plenty of that. Instead, he sees in Bruce a kindred spirit of sorts. He's a rogue through and through. So he offers Bruce an alternative. He says, if you are bored of brawling with petty thieves and you want to achieve something, come with me. And Bruce asks, who hired you to find me? Was it Wayne Enterprises? Was it Falcone? And Ducard says, well, even I don't know. These types of deals are always really shady. And for all that matters, he was assigned the task by someone in the shadows. And if Bruce decides to join Ducard, then Ducard is going to teach him everything that he knows about how to navigate walking in the shadows among the rest of those people. And during this era of training, Bruce is going to be bouncing around to a lot of different places in Europe. We started in Italy, but he is going to be in the United Kingdom, in Switzerland, in Germany, Belgium, Spain, etc. So Ducard says that if he found Bruce, Bruce needs to be more careful. And as much as he wants to pretend to be a nobody, everybody is somebody. And if somebody asks you, hey, are you Bruce Wayne? what's his response going to be? He needs a backstory. He needs to create some personas and identities, and he needs to embody those so that way he can become those people, and then he can project that going forward. The more inconspicuous you're trying to be, the more likely that somebody might be able to point out that you're trying to hide. You know, the person with the baseball cap on and the sunglasses and the hoodie up, they're going to stand out more than just a regular schmuck who's just background scenery to the rest of the world. I mean, can you draw me a picture of the people that were surrounding you in the subway today? I highly doubt it. So from this moment on, Bruce is not only going to continue to not tell people that he's Bruce Wayne, obviously, but he's also going to create a bunch of aliases. And he has a few that he goes by, and we can name a few of them here. Jack Shaw, Wilson Texlin, Simon Petrarch, maybe his favorite being Newt Brody. And over the course of Chapter 3 and Chapter 4, Ducard is going to be one of only 3 people who actually know who Bruce Wayne is. But at least one of those other 2, we're going to save that person for the next chapter. So for now, just... And under the tutelage of Ducard, Bruce is going to study the tactics of being a bounty hunter and what to do to go into hiding so another bounty hunter doesn't find you. But he's also going to be kept on the side, and this is a means to make sure that the 2 are not spotted together, because other people are still looking for Bruce. But Bruce does catch some glimpses here and there of Ducard talking to other people, and one of them is actually his wife, Felicity Strode. Turns out Felicity is an expert assassin who was sent to kill Ducard at one point, but they ended up running off together. And this is how Ducard knows how to keep Bruce as his protege, but to also cover his tracks along the way. It's also indicative of how he is able to break the rules and to get her to ignore her superiors, and why he was able to take Bruce in to begin with. You know, he's a rebel even within the game. But who is the young man that Henry's talked to and the young girl? Well, Ducard really doesn't want to reveal that information. And any time that it's brought up and Bruce asks who he's talking to, Ducard firmly states, nobody. Nevertheless, Bruce and Ducard develop a very trusted relationship. So much so that Ducard is actually going to be one of the most influential people in Bruce's life, especially when it comes to his training. To go along with the whole school analogy, kind of think of Ducard as that teacher that you had in school where after you graduated, you could still see yourself becoming friends with him. So Bruce learns a lot of skills that are going to help him along his journey, things like how to travel undetected and how to navigate the criminal underworld and everything, skills stacking on top of other skills. But why learn just those skills if you're able to multitask and speed up the process? Alongside learning from Ducard, Bruce is actually auditing a lot of classes from Oxford and Cambridge and the Berlin School of Science and so on, and he's learning things like modern criminology and applied forensics and criminal psychology and criminal justice and etc. So technically any of these names that I'm about to mention could be applied in the Batman blueprint from his high school years or these years. Take your pick for certain things along the journey. Some things fit, some things don't. I haven't bothered to sort them out yet, but for the purposes of this video, let's just speed round them. You got a bodybuilder, LaSalle, in Sorbonne. He's got weight training in Washington, D.C. from coaches Christian Fox and Jessica Fox. Acrobatics from the gymnast Peter Allison. Archery and Kyudo from Olympic crossbow champion Rafael DeJorda. An Australian named Lee Collins teaches him how to throw boomerangs, which is obviously useful for his signature weapon, the Batarang. Shastri is a herpetologist, where Bruce learns about poisonous snakes. Acids from Arnold Weber. Kingsley is a chemical toxicology expert that teaches Bruce about toxins found in plants and antidotes. Campbell for electronics. Dr. Daniel Capcio teaches Bruce how to hone his mind. Aurelius Bach and his wife Mina are 2 Austrian toxicologists that Bruce uses an assumed name Smith with during this time. Barrett Keane is a master makeup artist who teaches Bruce the art of disguise. And Bruce also takes theater classes for acting techniques that he hasn't already learned from Alfred, because Alfred was a former actor at one point in his own right. There's also a Sherlock Holmes type person named Cassander Wycliffe Baker. And Bruce and Ducard are largely settled in Paris during this time frame, and there's a lot to learn even in that region alone. Bruce helps Ducard take down Lucy Chesson, this French cat burglar that's known by the name the Grey Shadow. Another lesson that shadows are powerful, and clearly not the last cat burglar that Bruce is going to interact with. And speaking of Selena Kyle, who we are still not going to meet for a couple years at this point, but if we're talking about love interests, realistically, Bruce is involved in a couple more, but these are the 3 to talk about. There's still only really casual flings, but in France and in Italy, there's Robin Carnahan, there is Jennifer St. Cyr, and one of them is an Italian tutor living in Ingolstadt, Germany, named Julia Lavenza. Anyway, Bruce also comes into conflict with a group of French kickboxers named the Fearsome Foot Fighters, who come from the Balkan country of Caronia. And he learns marksmanship from the Swiss mark, Luca Jungo. Of course, he's not going to use traditional guns, but he will use like some dart guns and some tranquilizers and such, but he still needs to learn the tactics behind it, even if he's never going to use a gun in any of that proper sense. And eventually, Ducard tells him that he wants to test to see how much Bruce has learned so far. So, to see if he can properly blend in, he wants Bruce to actually go back to the United States. Now, if Bruce is able to blend in with people that are more likely to be able to recognize him, then he has truly proven that he is making progress. Under the alias of Frank Dixon, Bruce assists 2 different private eyes on some of their cases. One of them is Dan Mallory, who he helps in the Eric Kensington kidnapping case, and the other one is Harvey Harris, who he helps solve a few murders in Huntsville, Alabama. Bruce also learns the triple insert maneuver from the demolition experts of Frederick Stone and Jerry Sawyer. In northern Alaska, Bruce and a Native American tracker named Willie Doggett track down a murderer named Thomas Woodley. And during this, Bruce actually has to deal with hypothermia, and he learns to deal with some extreme cold weather situations like that. He is also taught a lesson of ritual animal masks from an Alaskan shaman of the Otter Ridge tribe. Arguably one of the most important sets of skills that he learns during this time frame that he would apply to being the Batman is from 2 sets of magicians. One of them is named Max Dodge, and the other one is Richard Carter, or by his stage name, Misto. And from these 2, he learns escapology, he learns quick change, sleight of hand, distraction techniques, ability to have more hypnotic suggestions in the way that he talks to people, how to be able to read people better, and to be able to use that into persuading them in certain ways. And funny enough, in the future, later on, Bruce is going to joke that he learned all these techniques from the ghost of Houdini. He did learn from Houdini in some of the old comics, but that's a little too ridiculous, so we're going to just reference it that way instead. Now, at the moment for the blueprint, I don't really have anything set in mind for Russia and South America, so we'll talk about that here. Maybe they take place during this era, maybe they take place a little bit later, not entirely sure, but at least when it comes to Russia, we can talk about how he is mostly in the Moscow region, and he's a little bit closer to Europe anyway, so not further towards the Pacific, but here he learns some more about disguise and espionage tactics from a woman who used to be a former spy. She is a freelancer now. Her name is Avery Oblonsky. And he also learns some gadgetry from a Russian engineer named Sergei Alexandrov. Funny story about Sergei, and no, it is not about his pet cyborg monkey named Maxwell. I don't know how I'm going to interpret that. Maybe it's just a little toy or something. Sergei in the comics locked Bruce under the Great Sphinx of Giza, and he had a depleting oxygen supply, and he gave him only the gadgets that Bruce had created, but that they were all broken. The idea in mind was, you need to fashion some sort of means for you to get out of here and survive with whatever you can think of, kind of impressive ingenuity on the spot. You're about to die. What are you going to do? We can't quite do that with the Great Sphinx. I think that's a little too ridiculous, but instead we can have something similar to that happen in this story where Sergei locks Bruce somewhere else. He's got little oxygen, broken gadgets, and so on. Same part of the story, just a little bit of a tweak. On the South American side of things, Bruce learns how to throw bolas from cattlemen in Patagonia, blowpipes from the Yanomami hunters in Venezuela, and when he is in Brazil, he learns from a getaway driver named Don Miguel, who is very much like a Vin Diesel in the Fast and the Furious type. He's got specialty cars and all. And this guy teaches Bruce some efficiency that he's going to apply in the future for driving the Batmobile. And once Bruce learns everything he needs to learn from Miguel, he promptly crashes the car that they are in on purpose, and he punches Miguel and knocks him out, and he leaves him to be captured by the police. Because Miguel, over a dozen different countries, has killed 23 different police officers. And in Bruce's mind, He'll learn what he needs to learn from these mentors, but if they are a garbage human, if they are a criminal, he's still going to take them down. That's his mission after all. It doesn't matter if you're his mentor. You are a criminal, so you are going down. If he had it his way, he would take down every single criminal that's in the entire planet. So since Bruce was able to pull off all these travel arrangements and not be detected by anybody, not be captured or anything, Ducard ends up telling him that he's basically done teaching him. For the most part, if Bruce stays with him, as comfortable as it is, he's going to be stunting his growth. And he knows that Bruce wants to do a lot more than what he's already capable of doing, so he wants to have him spread his wings and fly, essentially. But before Bruce moves on too far, he wants him to stay in Paris a little bit longer and meet with 2 other mentors. They have a dojo here, and he wants him to report there. So Bruce thanks Ducard for all of his tutelage, and they have their send-off of, you have an ally in me, and maybe we'll cross paths again in the future, and to show off that Bruce is going to be the world's greatest detective at some point, and to show a little bit of appreciation as well of just, you can keep a secret and I can keep a secret, essentially. Bruce says, make sure that you give my best regards to Morgan and Maya. Morgan is Henry's son, and Maya is Morgan's daughter, or Henry's granddaughter. Bruce figured out who those 2 nobodies were a long time ago, and he never said a thing. So this is kind of one of those, you keep shush about this identity, I'll keep shush about that. We can keep our secrets to ourselves, and there's an understanding there. Now it's time for Bruce to start getting into the Karate Kid side of things in a way, the more traditional sensei type of relationship. First off, in that Paris dojo, he'll be training with 2 masters, 2 brothers that are known as the Armless Master and the Legless Master. They were maimed in the Thai fighting circuit, and they eventually developed combat techniques that circumvented the loss of their limbs. The Legless Master is known as the Master of the Iron Hand, and the Armless Master, well, the Master of the Iron Foot. I think it would be pretty strange if one of them was the Master of the Iron Headbutt or something, right? So Bruce learns from them some techniques like the Scalpel, the Lion's Paw, Wave and Shore, the Wind Through the Reeds, the Skull Crack, and the Leopard Blow technique. And despite being new to the scene, Bruce quickly surpasses some of the other students, like top student Kai, nicknamed Hellhound because of the mask that he wears. Now, actually, different people here train under different masks that they are given, the Mask of Tengu, and Bruce has this rudimentary wooden mask of his own, which is basically the prototype bat cowl in a lot of ways. Hellhound actually wears his mask while he moonlights as a thief, and one day Hellhound is discovered to have been killed, and Bruce inquires who might have done this and why, and he's told, hey, look, when you're in this line of business, you make enemies and this sort of thing just sort of happens. Who killed Kai? Well, in all likelihood, he was taken by the shadows. Spoiler alert, since she kills the Armless Master in the comics, and because in mythology she has multiple arms, it's kind of funny if the killer is Lady Shiva. So Bruce moves on from the Armless Master and the Legless Master to a different part of the body, and I'm not just being jokey here. They are aware of somebody named the Ten-Eyed Man, and that is his next major quest. But in the meantime, Bruce travels through the region of Northern Africa and the Middle East, and he picks up some stuff from some other people along the way. In Morocco, he learns some different hunting and tracking techniques that he didn't learn from Ducard. This one is from a Kenyan bushman named Master Owabi. Eventually, Bruce finds the Ten-Eyed Man, who is the leader of a faction of people known as the Ghost Tribes of the Ten-Eyed Brotherhood of the Empty Quarter. And their leader is Philip Reardon, who, in my interpretation of the character, doesn't actually have synaptic nerves in his fingertips or anything. Instead, he is somebody that is so proficient with his fingers that people claim he might even be able to see through his fingers. And his followers, as a tribute to this, they all wear gloves that have little eyeball kind of markings on all the fingertips. So Bruce moves on throughout the region. He is guided by somebody named Arman, and that's in New Delhi. Eventually he goes to India. He learns some yogic meditation techniques from somebody named Cassandra. And after India, Bruce goes through the Bay of Bengal and into places like Thailand, Vietnam, and the Philippines. Bruce learns Silat in Indonesia. He learns Sabat from a convicted killer living as a beach bum on a small island off the coast of Borneo in Malaysia. In Thailand, a young street thief named Makala teaches him the technique of disappearing when somebody turns their head. You know, the type of thing that Batman's always going to do to Jim Gordon and other people when they're talking to him. They're going to turn around and suddenly Batman's gone. Now, when it comes to Asia, we're going to bounce around quite a bit here. As far as geography is concerned, I haven't figured out the right navigational routes. And narratively, I don't really think that you care. For the purposes of this video, let's just say that it all works out. While Bruce is going under the alias of George Woodbridge, he learns Aikido and Judo and kickboxing and body structure and flow. I don't really know what that means, but he learns that from Kurosaki alongside Sakura. There's also this eccentric old woman named Xiao La who lives in the Tenglishan Mountains of Tibet, and she teaches him about Taoism. And one of her lessons is to push him off a cliff where he only has this rickety kite apparatus. And guess what Bruce learns from that lesson? He learns how to glide, which he's going to use constantly with the bat wings for when he is Batman. And since there is a dark side to Taoism, Bruce is also going to learn from Xiao La's rival, who is spelled in all sorts of different ways, and so I'm not entirely sure what the right spelling is, but especially when it comes to the pronunciation. Hisan Tan is his name in some fashion. He teaches Bruce how to let go of his fears in a lot of ways, and how to read people, and to be a little bit more invisible. Not technically, but to effectively be invisible. Bruce also learns from Schoolmaster Oshifu, which is a merger of O-Sensei and Oshifu and Schoolmaster O. We're not doing the Academy of the Bat or the Batman of China thing with him, or at least not quite now, but his tutelage is affectionately referred to as the Ministry of Self-Reliance. Bruce also studies with the Shadow Clan of the Wudang Temple, which is located in the Hubei province of China, and the master there is Master Wang Fei Hung. There is no terrible trio involved in here, but you can keep all of the other stuff and history from Batman the Brave and the Bold, like Lam Fuke Sing and Ti Kui Sam and the Iron Wire Fist and Sling and blah blah blah. Master Wang Fei is mostly a practitioner in acupuncture and in medicinal and healing arts. And this is where Bruce is also going to come across one of the most skilled warriors he is ever going to meet, a warrior named Benjamin Turner, aka the Bronze Tiger. Now, Bronze Tiger is kind of a vigilante, kind of a mercenary. Bruce gets the feeling that he's a good guy. There's a little bit of an edge to him, but he nonetheless is considering him an ally. Bronze Tiger lets Bruce know of this warlord that he's come across named Huai Ren, who has massacred the village of Waguo in the Xinjiang province of Western China. And I apologize if I'm not saying these things correctly. And he wants Bruce's help to join him alongside the Zugon, these freedom fighters that include Ri and Sudu. They're going to take down Huai Ren. And Bruce uses the codename of Hei An Wushu, aka the Dark Knight, as a means to effectively hide his cover even more. And that group ends up taking down Huai Ren, and ends up being one of the first things that Bruce really applies his skills towards becoming that vigilante that he's going to be in the future. And Bronze Tiger then heads off to his next assignment, where he's recruited by a society. But before he leaves, Ben tells him of another person that he thinks that Bruce should train under. There are two main people that Bruce trains with for the next year or year and a half or so. The first one being Shihan Matsuda, who is a Tibetan Zen Buddhist monk warrior in the Himalayas. Matsuda actually expands on the hypothermia lesson, and he teaches Bruce how to properly regulate his body temperature. Bruce is able to actually even melt ice just by thinking of warmer thoughts. This is going to come in handy when he's fighting Mr. Freeze, isn't it? And Bruce is also going to be so proficient with a katana by the end of his lessons from Matsuda that he is able to cut a flying coconut in half and have it land in a way that it ends up being one piece. Also, side note, Bruce has a fling with pretty much at least one person in every region, just, a casual thing. And in this case, he is associated with a village woman named Mio Penumbra. One thing about Matsuda is that he is a very paranoid man. He actually doesn't trust anyone or anything, and he tries to Instill that in Bruce. Do not trust anybody for any reason whatsoever. He doesn't even trust his own wife, Matsuda. And here's a quote of something that I'm going to directly read that he says, "Affection and grief are human. Who you wish to become will have no need for them. The death of your parents is the best thing that could have happened to you. It freed you from the constraints of mortality. You are destined to be more than human." And Matsuda's paranoia serves him right, because one day, he is stabbed by Penumbra. Turns out that she was an assassin that was hired for this job, and she used Bruce to get to him, and that's how she was able to pull off the job. She doesn't fully kill him yet, but she gets the job done, and he's dying. So on his deathbed, with his dying words, he says to Bruce, "Don't let romance be the end of you." And he suspects that his wife hired Mio. In actuality, Matsuda was engulfed in the shadows. But Bruce isn't going to be aware of any of this, at least not for a while. And the next phase of his training is one of the longest. Here I am combining Takebi Kirigi and Sensei Yoru from the Batman animated series into Sensei Yoru Kirigi. In the Paktusan Mountains of North Korea, this martial arts grandmaster is going to teach Bruce ninjutsu and the lethal vibrating palm strike technique, among other things. Kirigi takes Bruce to an even more top-of-the-line level, almost to perfection, essentially. And Kirigi, like a lot of these people that Bruce has come across over these past few years, is somebody who is tied to a lot of nefarious people and good people. This is one of those trade-offs that happens with these super secretive types and people dealing with the underworld and everything. And Bruce is going to do this too. I mean, Bruce is going to be aligned with some criminals down the line, and I mean, Selena Kyle, and you get people like Harvey Dent and everything. So there are gray areas to a lot of this, and that's something that opens Bruce's mind up a little bit as well. You know, not everybody that's the worst person in the world is the worst person in the world, and some people that you think you can trust or people that you can't, and so on and so forth. So one of the other masters that's involved in Kiriji's teachings at Mount Kinchang is named Chuchin Lee, and he is killed by beheading. They attribute that to either the Triads or the Red Army, but the Shadows got him. Bruce is also taught how to sleep with one eye open from a master swordsmith with ties to the Yakuza named Sunetomo. Now, one of the good people that Bruce is training alongside is a woman named Kairi Tanaga, but one of the bad ones that he's training alongside is yet again the best of the students, because that tends to be a regular thing here, and that person is named Kyodai Ken. Now, Ken is expelled from the dojo because Bruce catches him trying to steal the prized sword of Sensei Yoru, and this leads to a showdown between the two at Mount Kajiki. It is an extremely tough fight, but through sheer will and the tactics that he's learned from other people over the years, Bruce is able to come out on top. Kyodai Ken is sent away as a disgraced member of this dojo. He is no longer welcome. That is probably going to burn Bruce in the future if they ever come across each other again, but nevertheless, Bruce is the new golden child. And as a result of this, Bruce once again finds himself being approached by a man in a suit. Ducard is here, and he is not just visiting for a friendly chat. Ducard tells Bruce that the Shadows have been watching him, and they are impressed. So much so, in fact, that he has been hired as an emissary on their behalf to reach out to Bruce and to pass on an offer to join them. You know that whole freshman year of college, sophomore year, etc. thing? Well, think of Kirigi as the final exam for when you graduate with your bachelor's degree. And now, Bruce has been granted a chance that very few people on the planet are ever even extended an offer for, let alone are able to go through and say that they've accomplished, which is he is going to go on to grad school. He is going to get his master's degree in vigilantism. Ducard, being the diplomatic representative that he is for this transaction, sets up a meeting between Bruce and this mysterious figurehead. And Bruce, when he meets up with this person, is standing in the presence of a man who refers to himself as Ra's al Ghul. Ra's al Ghul is the leader of the League of Shadows, which is an organization that has many different names that translate in many different ways from many different cultures. Some of them being the Death of the Desert, the Shades of Lazarus, or the Brotherhood of the Demon. And Ra's al Ghul is referred to as the Demon's Head. They are not only the group that has been watching him from the start and who hired Ducard to begin with, but they have also been instrumental in a lot of the ways that Bruce has traveled over the years. They have done things like taken out some enemies that would have gotten to Bruce ahead of time. They have been studying him from afar. They've been studying him up close. Bruce doesn't know, but they are responsible for killing some of the people that have been his mentors. And they are also responsible for disrupting some warlords like Huiren. Now that one is one of the ones that they do tell Bruce, as a means to get him to come along with them. Naraz tells Bruce, "You are an exceptionally talented man, but man is mortal. Now if he makes himself more than just a man, if he devotes himself to an ideal, and if they can't stop him, well then he becomes something else entirely." Bruce asks, "What's that?" Ra says, "A legend, Mr. Wayne." Bruce has been living in darkness for all these years, but his eyes are now finally ready to adjust. And the shadows, they have the answers to what Bruce is seeking. And in his coded journal that he's been taking notes in this entire time, and in the Wayne Foundation archives that we will refer to later on, Bruce notes some words that you might recognize. "They told me there was nothing out there. Nothing to fear. But the night my parents were murdered, I caught a glimpse of something. And I've looked for it ever since. I went around the world. I searched in all the shadows. And there is something out there in the darkness. Something terrifying. And it will not stop until it gets revenge. Me." But the tale of Bruce Wayne in the League of Shadows is a nighttime story for another day. So that is the end of Chapter 3, Guilt Trip, but the journey of Bruce Wayne becoming Batman in Volume 1, Gotham Guardian, will continue with Chapter 4. That is coming up right around the corner. So in the meantime, I want you to show your support of this video and the previous ones by sharing this on social media and all the different ways that you possibly can. As I mentioned before, the Blueprint Project is not something that is intended to just be these. So if you want even more details of the story and you want to see this in comic book form or in an animated form or a feature-length film, whatever it might be, you got to let people know about it. And the best way to do that is to just spread this around on subreddits and message boards and social media, TikTok, Instagram, whatever it might be. Just shout it from the rooftops. Let people be aware of this and do things like tweet with the hashtags of Batman Blueprint and Hire Mango DC Comics. Make sure you tweet at Batman, at DC Comics, at James Gunn, at the other people that have been involved in the franchise over the years, at other collaborators, that maybe we can get other people involved to do voices for this thing instead of just me doing everything. Maybe we can get some artists to draw some things up for this so you can get some more visual aids. Who knows what we can do here, but if you pass this along, the community, DC fans, Batman fans, community boards, whatever it might be, the more support that you show for this, the more chances that the right people will see this and that we can take this project to the next level. And the Blueprint Project can be something where all 100 stories can be exhibited to you in the way that I have it all in my head. Make sure you hit the like button on here, subscribe to this channel. And if you are enjoying this little taste that I'm giving you and you want to help directly fund me doing more of these videos or the project in general, there is a PayPal button at the bottom of fanboysanonymous.com. There's also a Patreon page, patreon.com/fanboysanonymous. The funds that you give to me to do these things means more of the videos in general and just the website content. Same thing for the pro wrestling stuff with Smart Out Moment, but it also means more time that I can dedicate to doing things like this and maybe continuing this project after the 5 that I had planned on doing. Maybe we do more things like the offshoot explanation of the Mafia family or whatever it might be. I mean, that's something that it's on you to show your support and to let me know. So leave your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure you are also following me all over the place at Tony Mango, everything that you can find at anthonymango.com. If you are an executive or somebody who this is being pitched to and you want to reach out, there are many different ways that you can, and I'm sure you are well aware of that, even through LinkedIn and such. Reach out to me. Let's see what we can do here, because the Batman Blueprint, I honestly feel, is something that I am extremely, extremely proud of, and I really want to show it off to more people in a better way, even than what this is doing. You know, I can only do so much here on YouTube. I hope that you enjoyed Volume 1, Chapter 3, Guilt Trip, and I hope to see you back here for Volume 1, Chapter 4, Head of the Demon. But until then, I'm Tony Mango. Please take care, and I will see you next time. Same bat time, same bat channel.